Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night to you, wherever you are listening. Welcome to another edition of the England Rogers Sports Hour on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. Roger's not here with us today, but I've got Monali Patel sitting in again. She did a show before, and maybe she's become the third co-host, but we will see. Welcome, Monali.
Thank you so much, Ingle. Great to be back on here.
Good to have you back. And yeah, outside, when I look outside, it looks sunny and bright, but when I look at the weather report, it said it feels like minus 21. So you don't have to go out. You know what to do. Just stay in and listen.
It's
Uh,
absolutely frigid outside. I was out there for about half an hour.
did you go for a run?
No, I had to go pick up some stuff. I dropped it
Oh,
off at the wrong place.
okay. I was just watching CP24, and one of the announcers said that she had an early morning run. And I'm like, wow, good for her.
Not in this
Um,
weather.
no,
This is fireplace weather.
exactly. To be going out for a run in this weather is not the greatest thing. But anyway, we're gonna get on with the show and talk about a few things. And I wanted to start today with talking about tennis. We left off, and Raja and I left off last week. The Australian Open was finishing, and I guess we spoke about the surprise winner in the women's side was Madison Keys. But then on the men's side, I don't think any much of a surprise. It was Sinner easily winning again, and with that cloud over him, but he won. He's, he won that Australian men's singles quite handily over who was this? Was it Perez? Perez was his opponent, yeah, and he won that quite handily. But the thing I wanted to discuss too is that he's got a hearing in April, and former Australian tennis star Venus Stubbs, she's come out and said that this is a joke, that the ITIA say no fault, and then WADA decides a month later to try a case, and she's saying it's bad for tennis. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't want to be the one to jump the gun on this.
Mm,
I think we should see how it plays out. But at the end of the day, he's technically still innocent until he's going to be proven guilty with this. So
mhm,
we'll have to see how the case ends up going. At the end of the day, the way the whole thing started, it wasn't really something as obvious as he's gone out to dope or anything like that. And I wouldn't really say that as far as his tennis playing has gone, he's continued to dominate and he's continued to be able to put that whole thing at the back of his mind and still perform to his optimal, despite knowing that there is a lot of controversy around him playing. And
mhm.
I think as an athlete, that takes a lot of mental strength to be able to do that. We'll just have to see how the case of the hearing ends up going at the end of it. But I don't think he's gone and intentionally looked to to take fair advantage or use disadvantage to enhance his game per se. So I don't think it's fair to point fingers at him just yet. Maybe
Not
let's
yet.
see how the hearing ends up going.
Yeah, I mean, she made some good points because what she has said is that in the interim, he's allowed to play and he's
Mhm.
won championships. He's
Yeah,
won the ATP finals, the Davis Cup for Italy, and he's won a couple of Grand Slams. So you're waiting for this case, but you're winning. So if they find him guilty, are they going to take away all those from him? Those are questions that come because in track and field, we know
yeah,
once you're found guilty, your Olympic medals, etc., are taken
you
away. So
stripped. Yeah, yeah.
it's stripped. So is that going to be the case? But we'll follow it and see what happens. And it's very keen to. I'm very keen to see what happens. So on the other hand, WADA accepted Iga Swiatek's reasoning, and she's clear.
Hmm.
So the manufacturers did say that their product was tainted, and so she's in the clear. She's fine now. So the 1 month ban when she was not playing any tennis, that was suffice. So that's good. On some ongoing tennis, Olga Allison Felix. He's been playing and he's been up and down, but he's in the semifinals now in Montpellier. It's a 250 ATP 250 tournament, so it's not the top tournament, but he's getting to the semis and winning those tournaments. But he's not winning when he gets on the big stage, and he's leading now 6-4 over Dijon. So we'll keep an eye on that and see how that one goes. And I'm not sure what's happening to the Canadian players. They're not getting deep into these Grand Slams anymore. But and you have any thoughts on it, or have you been following the tennis players, the Canadians?
Not much, to be honest. But I'm actually quite amazed at how well you keep up with all of the sports, given how busy of a man you are. But I do feel like it's generally Canadian sports overall. I feel like we're just not able to produce athletes at the highest level as often as we should. I mean, yeah, we can go back and say, we're a smaller nation in terms of population and so on and so forth. But then you look at everything that you and I suppose, work on in terms of the coaching side of things and how we're recognized
Mhm.
worldwide for our coaching and our coaching modules and whatnot. But yet we are not able to reflect that onto the international stage, whether that's tennis, even our Olympics numbers have just started to drop as well. Our medal count isn't as good as it used to be.
Mhm. There was
So
a, Go ahead.
no, no, go ahead.
There was a time when actually, yeah, when Canada made a big push with that own the podium and the
Mm-hmm.
medal count went up, but that doesn't seem it seems like it's lost some momentum. And as
Yeah.
you said, the medal count is going down. But let's hope that changes. And I don't think that Canada puts as much dollars into sport as some of the other countries. So that could be one of the reasons.
Yeah, it was actually one of the biggest. It was one of the biggest complaints that athletes had. And when that whole On the Podium program was on, I'd actually been part of the Athletes Canada Forum that year. And when you hear the struggle of Canadian athletes and the lack of support financially from the government, it's quite shocking because we're saying, we want you to take time out of your schedules. We want you to put school on the back burner, your job
Hmm.
on the back burner, and be high performance athletes training as a full time athlete on a non existent budget as a support from the government. And the government is saying, well, yes, we expect you to podium and we expect you to win medals. However, financially, we're not there. You
Yeah,
can't have it both ways. At the end of the day, the fact that being a high performance athlete without financial backing is very difficult, especially when we're living in a world where expenses are continually going up, inflation's part of it. A lot of
hmm,
these athletes are putting their education on hold. The idea is they're going to go back to their post grad education after they're done their sporting lives, but they've already got debt that they've picked up while being athletes, and then they're going to add some more debt while they're going to school.
yeah, that's so true. And yeah, they're gonna have to find a way if they want to do it. Maybe move to the U.S. or somewhere, or go to another country somewhere which will support them. But yeah, especially track and field. I don't see the support for
Yeah.
track and field. Okay, we will get off of that for a bit and move on to another sport that you probably haven't watched much of because you were away, and that's the NFL. And the conference championship in Washington, Philly. Roger and I were discussing last week, and I mean, I had a feeling Philly would win, but someone had to be different, so I went to the Commanders, and it wasn't even close. It was one Philly 55-23. They just blew them away, and it's gonna be the Eagles and KC again. Is KC gonna three-peat? I mean, that's the question. Buffalo probably feel that they had a chance, but it was close to that one, 30-29. But it's KC and Philadelphia, and it's very hard to go against Patrick Mahomes when it comes to Super Bowls. But Philadelphia has been playing well, and next week we'll see what happens. But most people are already calling it for a three-peat
Mhm.
for KC, and I'm just curious. I'm just waiting to see. There's two good quarterbacks, so We'll see what happens. Jalen Hurst is fit. Mahomes, we know what he can do, and it's going to be a good matchup. So I think that I don't know what the are your thoughts on that.
Um, I have absolutely
Nothing.
no football knowledge. I'm going to
It's
be completely
not
honest.
you don't watch the
Um,
good. You're fair. I hold
the
on.
sorry, what's that?
That's a fair.
I mean, the NFL is. It doesn't help that being away for 2 weeks and having literally no network, being completely disassociated with the world, is one thing. But apart from that, NFL has never really been. I think one of these days, Ingo, you need to explain more to me about the sport.
Yeah, I remember when I first moved to Canada, I had no clue about football, and I started a live game, watching the game, and everybody's cheering, and I wonder what are they cheering about. But I actually took time to learn the sport. Yeah, so you have to take time to learn it. Definitely, one of these days we will sit
I'm
down
going to have to because if I'm going to end up as your third host, I clearly need to.
to get with
I
some
need
of the
to pick up
sport.
my game here.
Yeah, you're gonna have to watch Formula One as well. So, so okay, we'll talk about some things that you're comfortable with, and then that's tell us about a little bit about we know that I'll talk a bit about you and your experiences because you're moving up a bit. You've gotten you started out some local commentary, and now you've got a chance to do the NPL, the Nepal Premier League, which I mean, people are crazy there. And you were telling me that when coming back home, you're probably gonna feel like it's not cricket when it compared to there and the crowds and stuff. So tell us a bit about that experience.
Yeah, I mean, the Nepal Premier League was just, it still feels like an absolute dream. To have the sheer number of people in the stadium, chanting their team names, the music, the atmosphere, it it really transformed the sport for me, especially from a broadcast perspective. I mean, we've been involved with the sport for years, have played it for years, but when you go from commentary here locally to something at that stage, and to see the passion, and it's a small country. We're not talking about a very big country, Nepal, but just the impact that they have in the fan following and how much effort they put into growing that sport. It's quite mind blowing, and I have to say, I have to hand it to all the fans in Nepal. They really do support their cricket, and they support it wholeheartedly. And it's quite lovely to see that when you have a small country with the backing that they do, you can make some very big steps forward. I think, I mean, for Nepal Premier League, it's their first year, but I can only see getting bigger and better from here. And they seem to be doing a lot of things right in terms of,
Mhm.
administration, sponsorship, the broadcast, and the fan following is the icing on the cake.
Great. Yeah, it seems that way because even when the Pakistan League, the PSL had their draft, the Pakistanis were upset and saying, listen, we just saw the NPL and you're not even 50% of what they did. So
Hmm.
I think the NPL is a good sign, good signs for Paras and the guys who did a good
Yeah.
job getting it going. And you can tell about the fan following because even when they come to play in Canada, Canada's like the away team because most of the Nepalese community come out. And we saw what happened in Dallas at the World Cup. That
Yes.
when they played there, that the whole section was just Nepalese fans.
Oh, I mean, I was there at the Netherlands game that they played at the World Cup in Dallas.
Hmm.
And out of the entire stadium, you had four Dutch fans. Just four. The
Wow.
entire stadium was just covered with a sea of blue shirts from Nepal. It was quite incredible.
It is, and I changed my phones, Monali, and I downloading and backing up stuff, and I came across a picture. And I smiled. It's a picture of you, Mike Hazeman, Rainsford, and Tony Gray back, I think, in 2017.
Oh, yes.
And I said, I have to send this picture to you. I don't know if you have a copy of it, but I said, I have to send this picture to you so you can see the difference then and now.
Oh, a long time ago now. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very long time.
that's when the West Indies were visiting, West Indies A team. I
Yes.
visited and played some games against Canada. Yeah, so the commentary I was on CBC, if I remember correctly. So I'll send that after the show. Remember?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the actual cricket itself, the good thing is that a lot of associate members got a chance to play in
Mhm.
the Nepal league, where you don't see it many leagues around the world. Like the ILT20 is going on in Abu Dhabi, and it's all the same international stars, and it's not a chance for associates. So to see, I think four Canadians got a chance to play in the NPL, and that was good for the exposure that they got.
Yeah, it was quite outstanding to see the number of associate players that were there, and it didn't devalue necessarily the level of cricket. They were able to come out and they were able to put on a really good show, which is what you want. T20 cricket's meant to be entertaining, it's meant to be entertainment,
Hmm.
and to have that sort of platform for associate players, which we don't talk about enough actually, because you see the ILT20, the SA20, you talk about all the major franchises, and it is essentially the same international players who are playing from series to series to series. In fact, this is a conversation that came up in Nepal between some of us commentators,
Hmm.
how some of the players are actually able to benefit from two leagues at the same time. Because let's say they're playing a league somewhere, let's say they're playing a league in South Africa, and
Hmm.
their team loses and they're knocked out first, and then they get drafted in a different league that's running at the same time, and that team is still continuing. They're profiting from two leagues at the same time.
Yeah.
And it just, there are a lot of questions about how should we structure this, because then that whole motivation for players to play their best to try and win isn't quite there, because they know they're gonna capitalize, whether it's here or whether they go there. At the end of the day, they get paid no matter what.
Yeah, and I've seen that, and I've seen players where, as you say, that they literally just as soon as the game is done, they jump on a plane, fly
Mhm.
somewhere else, and they're playing a couple hours later.
Yeah.
They get you can't have the kind of quality on that. So that's something that's got to be looked at. And I've said over and over that I believe that they need to go to a system similar to FIFA, where
Mhm.
whichever league you're playing in, that's your league.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, but one of my friends said no, he disagreed because the guys don't get paid as much, but they get paid in a lot of money, but when compared to other cricketers who are making nothing.
I
So
think the franchise rules really changed how much money players are able to make now.
yeah, and I think that when you look at franchise cricket, something has to be done because every week it's a new tournament coming up, and they're played all over. Like right now, I think it's South African ILT, and there's another league. There's probably three leagues going on at the same
Yeah. SA20 in South Africa, ILT20 in Abu
in
Dhabi,
Abu
or
Dhabi,
Abu Dhabi, I think.
and I think the Bangladesh Premier League as well.
And the Bangladesh Premier League's going on. Yes.
Yeah, so that's if it can happen like that, then our players get a chance. But then you're right, some of the guys who you wouldn't be surprised that whichever one is finishing first, once they're finished there, they'll go to join the other one once
Yeah.
their team is out. So
Yeah.
that's how it happens over and over. But something will have to be done there. So you're listening to the England Rogers Sports Hour. Sitting in is Monali Patel and on Love Bay Afrobeats Music Talk Radio. And Monali, we can talk a bit about West Indies. We'll get onto some actual West Indies versus Pakistan and that series. And Pakistan, they prepared a pitch to suit themselves, but it backfired.
Yes. I mean, I, I have to say the level of batting has been quite shocking. It's
Yeah,
1-1 tied, but you look at both games and they finished in 3 days.
yeah, it
The
is.
batting overall has just been a shocker from both sides.
Yeah, and I don't think I've ever seen a test match where West Indies bowl a full innings with just spinners, not one over bowled by a fast bowler. And Pakistan is same. I mean, Pakistan was quite open and they said, "Listen, West Indies do not play test do not play spin well, so they're going to go with spin. They're going to prepare spin wicket, but they didn't think about their batsmen. And you're right, the batting was just so poor. And I think it was shocking. I mean, I'm happy that West Indies won, and Warwickon came out, and I was not a big fan of Warwickon, and I didn't think he should have been there, but he turned out to be the best spinner, and he was player of the series because he had some great, great two games. So I think,
Well, listen, you might not have been a fan of him, but he scored runs and he's taken wickets. I think he should get a promotion up the order with the bat.
well, if you look at it, a contrast actually, because West Indies, the top order failed, the low order scored runs, and
Yeah.
then Pakistan basically their middle order is the one that scored the runs for them, and then yeah, in the second innings for West Indies in that final test, Brathwaite decided to attack and he got 52, and I think that was the way to play. But you're so correct. To me, the batsmen nowadays, they're looking at the batters, they're looking to survive, and you can't survive on these strips. They're
Yeah.
going to either have to score, and the technique has changed. And sometimes I wonder if it's because so much T20 cricket has been played that there's no. In fact, there's a stat that was shown that teams are batting, I think, about 10% shorter now in the
Mhm.
innings than previously. So they don't want to bat. They want to score. They want to score quickly, I guess. But yeah,
I mean,
go ahead.
I think I know the stat. They'd said in the last year, 40% of test matches played did not get into the fifth day
Right.
because the games are just getting shorter. You know, I mean, I suppose that is how the game's transformed, where we're looking to be more aggressive and more attacking. But at the same time, I have to question the mental strength because Test cricket has a lot to do with the mental aspect of it. And if they can't last those 5 days, what exactly is going on there?
Yeah, but sometimes I wonder if it's just a myth, though, because if you look back into some test matches, like I could remember a test match with India set in West Indies, I think it was close to 170 runs or something like that in one session. And Viv Richards decided to go after it. And the West Indies won. So, they played that style of cricket back then too, but they were able to adapt to whatever they had to do.
Yeah.
I think the modern players don't adapt. It's just one way. And yeah, and Pakistan said they're going to continue making these spin wickets. We saw it in India with matches finishing 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see. Pakistan is going to be going down to the West Indies sometime later this year. I don't think West Indies will make it a special pitch for them because I don't think what's special for West Indies at the moment. But they won. And actually, Ramiz Raja, I think it was Pakistani, he was very upset because he said Pakistan is losing to the low-ranked teams and playing good against top teams because they also lost to Bangladesh. So he's not happy about that at all. But that's how it goes sometimes. And Bangladesh is not a bad team. And as we're talking about that, there's some talk about the two-tier test system. What are your thoughts on that?
On the two-tier system,
Yeah.
I mean, we keep separating in cricket, don't we? I mean, we've got full members, we've got the associates, and then now we want to separate some more. But I feel like if we want to try and develop some of these other countries, I don't know if we can continue to separate. At some point, we want something that's a bit more integrated.
What needs to be done, I think, is give some more money because it's the top three get all the money.
That is that's a really good point, actually.
Yeah, because I mean, when one country is getting 400 million and the other test countries are getting 20 million or 30 million, how do you compete?
Well, I think we had this conversation in Nepal actually, because Nepal, if you look at the number of people that play cricket
Hmm.
and the number of leagues that they have, and compare that to a full member in Ireland, Ireland is nowhere close in the number of players, in the number of leagues, in the number of matches. And yet, when you look at the funding that Ireland gets because it's now a full member,
Hmm.
compared to the funding that Nepal gets because it's still an associate, it's shocking. The difference is just shocking.
It is.
But if you look at how much development is actually happening in one country compared to the other, it just doesn't make sense financially. Does You cannot have, or you shouldn't have, money split up based on, well, you're a full member, you get X number, or you're this country, so surely it's got to be backed by the number of people playing in that country, a bit more than just the tier system that exists right now.
Yeah, to me that a lot of times the things that ICC change depend on what is required at the time, because as you said, Ireland and Afghanistan, they got test status.
Hmm.
And once ago, you must have had a proper first class system in the country, but that's not necessary anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you wonder, in Ireland don't have half the amount of cricketers as Nepal, as you said, and Afghanistan probably don't either, but they are both full members and getting much more money. And Nepal, I mean, the players, how do you develop these players? And then same as in Canada. Canada probably, you can't develop the players with the money that you get here. I mean, people
Yeah.
Canada get just a little over 1.5 million, and people think it's a lot of money, but it's no money when it comes to
It's not a
development.
lot of money at all, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a lot of work to do in the system, and I mean, I feel it for those countries who are asked to play in the associate world and to play against, say, the Canada and the US
Hmm.
that compete, and they get maybe $25,000.
Hmm.
I mean, the
Yeah.
Bahamas, the Caymans, they hardly get anything for
Yeah.
development, but yet still they expect to play at a certain level. So those are things that have to be looked at. Getting back on the field, though, the other test match that was going on, a live test match, finished this morning. Actually, it's Australia and Sri Lanka, and no surprises there after that big score that Australia made, 654 for six declared, and Usman Khawaja redeeming himself with a double century, the first Australian to get a double century in Sri Lanka. And Josh English, sorry, on debut, 100. Stephen Smith, 141. So 640, 654 for six declared. And then in the first innings, Sri Lanka 165 and 247 all out in the second innings. And the wickets shared again. Nathan Lyon had four in the second. Kuhneman had four. In the first innings, Kuhneman had five and three for Lyon. So those two bowlers were the outstanding bowlers for Australia. Any surprises there in Sri Lanka?
None, none. I mean, Australia is definitely a much, much better side, and they've come out and they've done what they were expected to do. They've dominated. They've dominated with bat and with ball. You mentioned Usman Khawaja getting to 232, and I got to be honest, I'm still surprised that he's in the side, but then he pulls off an innings like that, and then that adds a couple more series under his belt. But
Yeah,
it's runs on the board. Yes, it's against Sri Lanka. Nonetheless, it's runs under his belt. As for Sri Lanka, I mean, to lose by an innings and 242 runs, it's a lot. It's expected, but you'd think you'd have a bit more fight given that it is in your hometown. You've got some home ground advantage, but we're talking about Australia. I mean, they really do. They do dominate.
they do, and they can actually play freely because they're already in the Test Championships, and they're trying some new players as well.
Yeah.
And Australia, as you said, they do dominate, and there was no contest. I was expecting a better fight from Sri Lanka being at home, though. But when when you see a team score 654 and you're out there fielding for 2 days, it's tiring.
Yeah.
Mentally, you're watching them score runs like that, and yeah, the only person that we had a 72 from Chandimal in the first innings. That was, and then second innings, the highest was a 41 from Angela Matthews, and he's still around. There's a time when, as you said, similar to Usman Khawaja, at a time when people thought he was going to be out. He's now 37, so don't expect him to be there for much longer. But just getting back to Khawaja a bit, in the Australia versus India series, there was a lot of calls for him to get dropped, and he came back and scored some runs after that. And as you said, he always seemed to do enough. I remember when he was here for the GT20, he said to me that he's going to be in the Caribbean. So if I'm around, make sure I look him up. So I guess he's confident he's going to be there.
He's gonna be there.
Yeah, he's confident he's going to do enough to, you know. So yeah, he does enough, and it was a great innings. I watched some of it, and Steve Smith in in that innings of his 141,
Mhm.
he's gone over 10,000 runs, and wow, it's he's a leg spinner turned batter and got 10,000 runs. How often do you see something like that?
I mean, when I saw him as a leg spinner, I really had questioned what Australia saw in him.
They were looking for someone to replace Shane Warne at the time, and they were just grasping. That's what I thought too.
He
But
was dismal, though.
yeah,
He
he was
was
dismal.
dismal at it.
Yes, I think he knew that himself too. So he said, "You know what? Let me go and work on my batting." But he's got the most unusual style, but it works for him.
I mean, you said it. He's come out leg spinner to batter 10,000 runs. Yeah, he had to wait for it. He needed that one run to get to 10,000 from the last series.
Hmm.
Does eventually get it, but he's unorthodox, very interesting to watch because he's a character. I mean, he really is a very interesting character on the field.
I watched him closely in this inning, and I was trying to figure out what he. But you would not tell a youngster to look at him to learn, and but he keeps his eyes on the ball and the way he defends and everything, and it's just so unorthodox, but
Yeah,
it works for him.
yeah.
So it may work, and as you said, he's a character that, yeah, he's just looking at his antics and stuff when he's doing his stuff. It's something else, and I don't know how much longer he's gonna play, but some people are comparing. He's 35. I'm sure Sachin did this before, but they were talking about the number of innings Sachin got. They're similar in stats in getting to their 10,000 runs, but Sachin went on and played for a long time. So he's got an average of 56, which is great. 239 is his highest. I'm surprised he's never scored a triple century, but 239 is highest, and he's got 3,500s and 41 50s.
Yeah. I
Yes,
mean, the other thing is also Sachin started a lot younger in
yes,
age, so he had a much longer career than a lot of these players will. And plus, I mean, I suppose apart from Constas, who's recently debuted and he's 19, most of their test players don't necessarily debut that young for Australia.
that's so true. And I was actually, as I said, Constance, I was actually surprised that he didn't play in this match.
Hmm.
I thought they would have given him a chance here to learn since they've already gone through the test
Into the
championships.
finals.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but they gave a 29-year-old his debut.
yeah.
And that's Australia is known for doing stuff like that because we've seen people debut at 34 years and stuff for Australia, and in those times, most other countries will say you're too old.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
so
is a very merit-based system, though, there, isn't it? I mean, it's if you're able to score the runs and if you're scoring it in the leagues, locally, then you do get rewarded. That was one of the things that really stood out to me when I was there playing my season as well. I mean, it's very merit-based if you want to work up.
hmm
Um, and I guess it also goes back to when we talk about, we're not rushing juniors into these roles if they're not ready for it, because it's not necessarily an age-based thing. It is an ability-based thing.
right, it is, and we tend to in most countries go by age and not ability, and I'm seeing it here in Canada. I was looking at the Ontario program, and there's one player who I think he's in the under 18 age group training, and there's an under 23 camp training, and I think he should be with the under 23s, but because his ability is just up there.
Yeah,
But as you said, it's age based
yeah.
most of the time. So Australia's Sri Lanka one more match to just a two-match series, and that's the other thing. I don't know why the big three are allowed to play 5 matches against each other, whereas the others can only play two. You
I
know,
mean, how many whitewashes do you want to see?
well, that's the only one they're
What
gonna
about
lose.
this one?
It's, you can probably just learn that way. But and I think it's a mental thing because I don't believe the players are that much far apart when you look at them individually. But as a team, something just clicks for and the belief, or maybe Sri Lanka is thinking, "Wow, we're playing against the mighty Australia." Because there was no Cummins. Cummins didn't play in this. I
Yeah.
mean, the opening bowlers for Australia, it was they were new. So Stark is the only one that I recognize. Todd Murphy is pretty new, you know. So
I mean, you do bring up a really good point about it being a mental thing, but with I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later with the women's Ashes and how
and
Australia has destroyed England there as well. I think there's a big mental aspect to it, but the fact is that Australia is just so good at dominating competition when they do, and that track record, I can see it having an effect on the opposition. But when we're looking at Sri Lanka in specific, they've had some rough patches in the last few years, and even the ODI World Cup recently, there wasn't. We can't really say that there's been any player that's come out and said, "Oh yeah, well, you know what? This is the sort of player we're looking for to replace the Sangakaras and the Dilshans." We
right,
just haven't seen that sort of crop come out recently. So they have some troubles that they need to sort out in their system.
they do, and it seems to be a lot of political interference as well
Hmm.
in the Sri Lankan system. You're correct. So, okay, well, you're listening to the England Roger Sports Hour. Sitting in for Roger today is Monali Patel, and it's on Love Bay Afrobeats Music Talk Radio. We're going to go switch gears a bit, talk about the India and England T20 series. Well, basically, India has won that series now. It's 3-1 with one to go. And there's a bit of controversy in the last game. And concussion sub was given. And England, they said that wasn't the main. They batted poorly, they accept that. But
Hmm.
just that you allowed a bowler to come in for a batsman. And it's supposed to be like for like. The batter got hit on the penultimate ball in the 20th over. And he he was checked. He faced the last ball and then India asked for a concussion sub. He scored 56, and then they gave them a bowler who basically came out as a concussion sub. And England not too happy with that.
We had this discussion yesterday at home.
Okay.
we Yeah, it's a bit of a controversy, and I suppose, what is your opinion on it before I give you mine?
My opinion basically is that they should have. They're probably saying he's an all-rounder, but he's only the sub that they were given. He only played 2 or 3 matches, and he batted at 10 and 11. So I think that I don't believe it was like for like.
Mhm.
Think it gave India a bit an advantage of the bowler who's bowling. The bowler who was the batter who's an all rounder. He bowls maybe at about
Yeah,
120ish,
yeah,
and this guy comes in and bowls close to 140.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, Harshit Rana, I would say, is more of a bowler. He's a bowling all rounder, whereas Shivam Dube was a batting all rounder for me. Um, that being said,
Hmm.
I suppose at the point in which that they needed to take that concussion sub was the fact that India was thinking, well, we're done with the batting side of things. We now need to be focusing on the bowling side of things. And if it's the bowling that we're going to miss out in from Shivam Dubey, then maybe we should be asking for that bowling aspect of a concussion sub. Do I think it's a like for like? Not necessarily, but maybe their thought process is the batting is not what we need anymore from our all-rounder. It's the bowling that we need. So we're going to pick someone who's more of a bowling option than a batting option going into that phase of the game. I don't necessarily agree with it. I'm not really sure how.
I think you're right, and they did probably think that, but it's not. I don't blame. India for asking. It's the match referee who makes the decision.
Yeah.
So he could have said no, but maybe where he is, he's afraid to.
Well, it's going back to that Australia thing, isn't it? I mean, Australia is a top dog. So what sort of buttons can you push? And mentally, where are you? And then this is India we're talking about. So yeah, you're the match referee, but you're also talking about India and the BCCI. And, there is a lot of pressure that goes hand in hand with that. So not like for like, if I was to say, but at the same time, if they're thinking, well, we're done with the batting and we need the bowling option in that all rounder, then we're going to push for the Harshit Rana. And yeah, he picked up wickets. And
Yeah.
yes, England, is whining a bit. But the fact of the matter is, England is 3-1 in this series.
They're not playing well at all now. So they did accept. They said that it's not the that's not the reason they lost. They've had some poor shots, but yeah, I think yeah, they're down. So it's just, but if you look at the whole series, I'm just looking for Shivan Dubé didn't bowl one over in this series.
No.
Right. So I think yeah, they got one over on the match referee. And and I've never seen, I don't know if I can recall a match where the person who was subbed as the concussion, who went out as Shivan Dubé, he was the player of the match.
Yeah.
So
because of the runs he
the
scored.
runs he scored, yeah.
Yeah.
So not for his bowling, but I'm sure that will be debated for a while. And the the England article that I read went into detail about what the rule says about like for like, and they didn't think it was like for like, which I don't believe it was either. But they got one over on them.
I mean, despite this whole situation, I think England does need to go back and look at what's going on with their selections and potentially their development, because they have had some hard times recently. And again, I know we're going to talk about this in a little while, but this goes for their men and their women. They are struggling right now. Something's not clicking for them, and they're not able to compete at the highest level as they used to in the past.
Yeah, they just lost to West Indies as well, and so yeah, something has to be done for them. As you mentioned, we've got about 15 more minutes, so we're gonna get on to some women's cricket, and we'll start with the women's under 19, which has been very good, and we've got the two finalists for tomorrow, and India, no surprise, in South Africa. A bit surprised that they beat Australia, but maybe they've been playing better all along, and I didn't realize it.
I mean, it really makes you wonder. South Africa as a whole in the women's game has come up quite a bit in the last few years. And to see that their under 19 team not only beat Australia, but are now in the finals, it speaks a lot about their development that they're doing. And if their grassroots is going as well as it is, and their under 19s are able to perform the way they are, then potentially we're looking at a really solid senior side in the next few years. We've seen a lot of glimpses. They've made their semifinals, they've made their finals, but hopefully for them, they're heading up and into the right direction with this. India, on the other hand, they're defending the title from the last World Cup. They're winners at the last World Cup. But for me, the question mark with India is you've won the last under 19 Women's World Cup. You're in another final. But that sort of success has not necessarily translated as often as it should into their senior side. And it's a very large country. I don't really know what their selection policy is. They do have a lot of girls playing the sport in the country. But again, when it comes to taking on some of the bigger sides, they struggle to do that consistently.
Yeah, I noticed that with India, they don't get the kind of results. And as you said, they're dominating at this level, but the transition is not happening there. And yeah, I'm not sure what it is. Maybe that they need to keep these girls together, playing more often as their development squad or something to go through, because there's some talent there. in these India under 19s. Uh, I was expecting, I mean, I watched some of the under 19, and England have been depending a lot on Davina Perrin, and she scored 45, but the rest of them have not done a lot, and that's probably why they lost that game so easily to India.
Yeah. I mean, also looking at the success that USA's had in the under 19
Mhm.
World Cup. It was unfortunate that they had the one washout
Yes.
early on. And I think it might have been a tight game. That was against New Zealand, I believe, if I'm not wrong,
New Zealand,
or
they lost, no,
Pakistan.
Pakistan, they lost to New Zealand.
Pakistan.
Yeah.
So I have to say I was quite impressed with the way USA played in this under 19 Women's World Cup. And those are all girls that have, they were born and raised in the US. They've played all of their cricket in the US, and you can see that they're able to hold their own fairly well against some of these top sides. So, very impressive to see this from USA. It's a bit worrying from a Canadian perspective because,
Hmm.
they are at this moment quite far ahead of us. But to have that North American representation and to have that side who's able to hold their own, compete at that level, and quite frankly look quite formidable at times is positive signs for North America. They really impressed me in this World Cup.
Yeah, they played really well, and I think it's just a matter of experience why they didn't get further. But
Yeah.
definitely, they played really good cricket, and they were impressive. And there's no reason why they should not go on. And as you said, it's worrying for Canada, but yeah, they have done well for themselves as a unit. And what you pointed out, I pointed out to someone to said it's the whole team. They're all born in England. I mean, in USA. I'm
Yeah.
looking thing, which is remarkable. You don't normally get that when you get these teams. It's always I see comments from a lot of people. Oh, it's an Indian team or Pakistani team or whatever. But I mean, even though they're parents from maybe the Asia, but they are all born there and they're true Americans. And I follow their social media and they seem to be having so much fun and they're helping each other.
Yeah, I mean, my last experience, because a lot of these girls were also on their national side at the qualifiers in LA.
Hmm.
They're all in their teens and they're all in school, taking time off school to dedicate to the sport. As they go out, they play their game, they'd all come back, and almost two-thirds of the team is down there with their laptops doing homework together in the lobby. You
Wow.
know, that's just they're so used to this adjustment because school is very important. They also, like you've mentioned, they have that background where the parents are from India or these Asian countries, so school is obviously going to be very important from that perspective. Parents are going to
Mhm.
push on that, but then it's also nice to see that they're able to balance both, which is very hard to do because a lot of them are knocking on doors for universities at the same time. They're 18, 19. It's a tough time in terms of transitioning from high school to universities and still managing sport. And they've had quite a lot of tours recently as well. But nonetheless, we'll have to see who's going to win this final tomorrow. Who are you
Yeah,
going for?
I'm going with South Africa.
I really, I really and truly hope this is going to be a World Cup win for them. I really do. I mean,
Too often they get to the finals of World Cups and don't win. So I'm hoping that they can win.
me too. Me too. I can't go against you on this one. South Africa's my team, so
I'm hoping South Africa would win. So what time is that game tomorrow? It's at 1:30 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, so
it
yeah,
works well with the jet lag.
yeah, you'll be up because the
I'm
time
up at 3 o'clock.
your body will probably be on that time zone still. Definitely. Um, just we've got about 8 minutes or so just to wrap up. The Ashes on women's Ashes, Australia, as you mentioned, they're just dominating and they've made it clear they just want to rub it in England.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
I mean, there was no contest there. It was total domination, whether it was the ODIs, the T20s, or the test match. England are in a lot of trouble. I mean, their players look unfit. They look like they're out of form. And somewhere, something's not working with that program. I mean, there was a point in time where England was ahead.
Yeah.
in terms of developing the sport. And then Australia said, hold on a second, we're not to be outdone. And they've changed, the face of cricket completely. And England is now nowhere close to being able to compete with them.
Yeah, England don't look like that England I saw a few years back. I
Mhm.
mean, it just looked totally different. And yeah, I mean, Sutherland's going 163
Yeah.
in a test match. I mean, it just a big in his defeat there for England. And she's only 23 years old, right, Sutherland? And so it's a good sign for Australia, the sixth match. So yeah,
And
very good.
the other thing was the fielding was horrendous from England. They
Mm,
dropped Sutherland, I think she was on 16 or 19. She goes on to score 163 runs. They dropped 10 catches
that's not
in test
acceptable.
match. Yeah,
No.
it's just
So they lost the T20s 3-0. Their ODIs they lost, and now the one-off test match they've lost.
mhm.
So and Australia, yeah, I think they will keep. I think Australia will keep dominating for a while at women's level.
Yeah, they're well ahead. They're well ahead, and their pathway is well in place as well. Which
Yeah.
is where, going back to USA, they'd hired Julia Price,
Mhm.
and she's a former Australian player, former World Cup winner, and she's laid down a lot of that foundation in America where they have that pathway for the girls starting at the under 13s, the under 15s, and they go up all the way up to the senior side. And it's really, we're starting to see the reward for that now. They're consistently able to perform. In fact, they played against West Indies not too long ago. They did well there. Zimbabwe right after that. So they have, it just goes to show if you're able to lay down that platform and that pathway, and we talk about that LTAD program, it is a long term development program, then you will eventually see the results for it.
Yes, definitely will, and that's what's happening in Australia. Um, Quickly to wrap up women's cricket, West Indies dominated Bangladesh. I'm surprised Bangladesh actually got that one game, but they did. But it was all West Indies women. And Haley, well, it was a Haley
It
Matthews
was
show. But she sat out yesterday's game, surprisingly.
yeah.
And West Indies still won.
Yeah.
And it wasn't Deandra Dottin. It
Yeah.
was, other players that stepped up. So good to see that West Indies could play these games and actually win. So
No, I mean they dominated the T20 series as well. That was a total whitewash. But I guess the worrying sign for both Bangladesh and West Indies now is none of them automatically qualify for the World Cup.
yes, that's the thing, and they have to now go and play in a well. Both teams, if Bangladesh won that series, they'd have gone through automatically.
Mhm.
But now both teams, right? West Indies winning, both teams have to play in the qualifiers, and it shouldn't be that tough. But I don't understand though. For ICC, that's another thing. If you're trying to grow the game, why are you cutting down the teams in the World Cup?
I believe that's changing at the next one, though, if I'm not wrong.
Okay. Yeah, I think there should be automatic and then similar to what they do for the men's. I think
Yeah, I think the next World Cup they're changing that, and it's going to be more teams. So
and it's probably less costly to if you because to play the qualifiers and then to go to the world, yeah, it's probably
mhm.
gonna be because you have quite a number of teams there. Bangladesh, they just didn't look like they were in it. And I watched some of the match last night, mostly when West Indies was chasing. And 'cause by the time I remember the game and 10, Bangladesh were already out for 105.
Yeah,
And West Indies women, they had two new openers, Joseph and Crafton opened, and then you have General Glasgow batted at three. So it was the standing captain Gajnavi who actually no, it was Haram Narak was captain. Sorry, but Gajnavi she was 27 not out,
yeah.
and Zaida James. So they won that chase to 105 quite easily for five, and they dominated that series. So now, as you said, they now have to go and prepare. For both teams have to prepare
Qualifier.
for the fires. Yeah. So just about 3 minutes to go, and I'll just wrap up quickly. And I think just with news and notes, Sachin Tendulkar is set to receive the Colonel Now you do Lifetime Achievement Award at the BCCI's annual award ceremony today, actually, February 1st. And Bumrah, Jasprit Bumrah, has been chosen for the Polly Umrigar Award for the Best International Cricketer in the men's category, while Smriti Mandana has been picked for the corresponding on women's side. Any surprises there?
No, none.
No.
I mean, Sachin, and Jasprit Bumrah has been as consistent as he can be, showed great promise as captain as well. And
Hmm.
Smriti Mandana, I guess she's the Haley Matthews of India, she's been around for a while and she continues to hold down that one end as an opening batter for them. So no surprises there to see all three.
Yes, that's a good. No surprises at all, as you said. Great players, and Sachin's name is always there for anything with Lifetime Achievement Award, well deserved. Well, Monali, we've come to the end of the show. It's been a pleasure having you with us, and hopefully, we can do this more often.
Sounds good. I'm going to start brushing up on my NFL and my Formula One.
Formula One starting soon, so yeah, we're supporting Lewis in the new Ferrari. So
That's right. He
yeah,
was on a commercial on the flight, actually. It
yeah,
was a pretty good commercial highlighting how it's a team effort, even though
Mm,
he's the one behind the wheel.
yeah. It's gonna be interesting because yeah, Ferrari has two good drivers, himself and Leclerc, and it's gonna be very interesting season. So to everyone, thanks for listening. Be safe and enjoy the rest of your weekend.